Hey everybody, Unconventional Pastor Paul here. Let's talk protest today on this unconventional conversation with Pastor Paul. I know we've heard a lot about protests, and I've heard a lot of people around me to say protesting is okay, but if it gets ugly in any way, then it's wrong. I don't 100% disagree. But here's the problem with that sentiment. To an oppressor, disagreement is always violence. To the privileged, a demand for equality is always oppression called for the privileged. I have over my shoulder Dr. Martin Luther King's letter to Birmingham jail that I always have out here to remind me how even in his idea of nonviolent protest, he was hated by white people. His approval rating was way down below Joe Biden's or Donald Trump's at the time of his death. He became much more popular after he was killed. We're really good at renovating history behind us, not so good at making the right choices when history is upon us. So as I look at the protests today, I can't help but think back to the 60s and the Vietnam protest. There comes a point where, as a human being, when you don't have a voice, sometimes one does things that they wouldn't do otherwise. Sometimes when nobody will listen and a group of people just can't take it anymore, the brick through the window is the only thing that catches attention. And remember, what is it that we celebrate on a regular basis in American history? A bunch of men going in and destroying private property of a business person, tossing a commodity, tea, into the Boston Harbor. We call it the Boston Tea Party and say, look at us. And what is our brave protest is somebody else's terrorism. The status quo always hates people who say, let's get rid of the status quo. Religious people and political leaders in the story of Jesus hated him because he stood against the status quo. MLK was hated for standing against the status quo. Vietnam protesters hated for standing against the status quo. And today, well, why don't they just do peaceful protests? Why do they have to block buildings? Maybe it's because they feel like nobody will be listening. The interesting thing is I talked to the students in my class that I teach at our local community college, what they thought about campus protest, and their answer, and everyone agreed. It's a waste of time. Nobody listens. America's never going to change. Nobody cares. And then you wonder, boomers and Gen Xers, why do these kids do these things? And the interesting thing is, boomers are the Vietnam protesters. What happened to you that now you have become what you despised? Yes, I get it. Donald Trump did an amazing job of demonizing BLM protesters over the summer and people who follow right-wing media. But sometimes it's worthwhile to stop and say, so are those people just inherently evil? Are Middle Easterners just people that are easily drawn to terrorism? Or is there something else at play? Is there a history that has played into this, that until we quit repeating history, history will keep repeating itself? The Hatfields and McCoys kept killing each other. And the only thing that would end it would be either all of them be dead or somebody stop killing the other side. I don't like to weigh in necessarily on the Israel-Palestine issue because it's just so fraught with peril in today's culture. And it's almost like you have to make the choice between being pro-genocide or anti-Semitic. And I am neither. but I am pro-human. And I know what was created by dividing up the land arbitrarily after World War II has created very inhumane circumstances for many people. And today, I, like so many others, want it to stop. I think the retribution for October 7th has been served, and then some. But what does retaliation get you in the end? After 9/11, our government thought, well, we have to get somebody for this. Somebody has to be made to pay. And so, we'll go after Iraq. What did it do for us? Did it make us a better people? Did it make us safer? Do we feel safer when we fly on airplanes now? We have to take our shoes off when we get on planes. There comes a point where being pursuers of peace rather than being the biggest bully on the block is what gets longer term safety and comfort. So be careful when you say, I'm all for protesting. I'm all for the First Amendment, but this is too much. When Dr. King and all the brave people walked across the bridge in Selma, Alabama, to the white people of that day, they were committing violence, no different than these college students today. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And I feel too often we don't look at history to say, oh, wow, we got that wrong, particularly in the Christian community. We stood on the wrong side of history there because we chose the side that was popular with our community. When are we ever going to stand on the unpopular side, like Jesus did in defending the woman caught in adultery by sitting with a Samaritan woman at the well, so that we can finally be on the right side of history? It's very easy to, thugs and those college students on those college campuses. It's much harder to say, you know what? Those college students are no worse than me. So maybe there's a reason, a logical one, a human one, a thoughtful one, that they're doing something that I find disagreeable. Important is the First Amendment to me if I'm willing to defend somebody's right to disagree with me because of the First Amendment. If you only love those who are like you, Jesus once said, how are you better than the worst person in culture? Let's not be afraid to think. Let's not be afraid to say, we've got it wrong in history before. Let's not be wrong again. Don't miss our next Paul and Ashley Live, Sunday, May 5th at 7 p.m. Pacific.